Welcome to ATR Powerslam, Above the Ring's exclusive YouTube show, coming to you to provide all your wrestling results for the week ending in 9/2/2023 with a 20-minute time limit. We're your hosts, the SLB and Scott. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe and hit that like button. We have been gone for a few weeks. We will be coming back full-time in a couple weeks. Don't forget, All Out is tonight. Watch All Out. We'll be on Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. But for now, I want to kick things off with Scott talking about Monday Night Raw.
Yes, Monday Night Raw rolling into Payback, which actually did happen last night. Ethan and I will have a exclusive post show about this that will be coming out on Monday. But rolling into the show, we kick things off with a match between Damian Priest, Sami Zayn. Damian Priest getting the big victory. Rolling into obviously their title match that's coming up, or that actually happened on Payback. But JD McDonough, Finn Balor's longtime friend, trying continuously to make his way, or at least it seems to be making his way into the Judgment Day. But everybody else besides Finn seems to have an issue with it, but we'll see what happens. We had a great promo video segment from Raquel Rodriguez talking about how she wants to be the one to cut down Rhea Ripley going into their pay-per-view. After that, The Miz came out mocking LA Knight, dressing like him, doing the yas and the whats and everything else. And, people like to give Miz a lot of shit, but this man knows how to mock his opponents and do it so flawlessly. So people need to give this man his flowers. It took me a long time to actually come around to Miz, but now everything he does is just, yeah, it's fantastic. We had a tag team match between the Viking Raiders and the New Day, with the Viking Raiders getting the victory. Drew McIntyre was down at ringside because there's been issues with the Raider, actually with all three teams, with Drew and Matt Riddle now becoming a tag team. Drew actually getting involved, throwing one of the big computer chairs at some of the competitors, hitting Xavier Woods squarely in the face and actually injuring him legitimately. So, whoops. After that, we had ourselves a match between Chad Gable and Ludwig Kaiser. Now, Ludwig has just been outstanding as of late. Before, he was just Gunther's mouthpiece, but this man knows how to wrestle in the ring. If you watched him on NXT UK back in the day, you could definitely tell him and Giovanni Vinci, or what was his name back then? Whatever. It's irrelevant at this point because they've changed the names. But it's nice to see him doing well. Chad obviously has been underutilized his entire career. Definitely going full speed into next week's match between him and Gunther. It is the final title defense before Gunther takes over the longest reigning Intercontinental Championship reign, currently held by the Honky Tonk Man. So we'll see what happens. But Chad Gable getting a big victory here over Ludwig. And then after that, we had Shinsuke Nakamura attacking Seth Rollins yet again, talking about how he knows about Seth's back injury, which is a legitimate thing, and rolling into what was a fantastic main event of last night's Payback. We also had Tommaso Ciampa getting a big victory over Bronson Reed. And we had, of course, a brawl between Raquel Rodriguez and Rhea Ripley. Raw and SmackDown recently have just been ridiculously not predictable with brawls, but it's been a lot of fun to just watch. And then your main event was Becky Lynch defeating Zoe Starks in a Falls Count Anywhere match. Trish obviously getting involved. This thing was absolutely batshit crazy. Obviously, more momentum for Becky rolling into the pay-per-view. As we jump over to NXT, we had the Creed brothers returning to take on and defeat Dyad to get themselves back into WWR, back into NXT. We had the first round of the NXT Global Heritage Invitational. It's basically a mini G1. There's two groups, Group A and Group B. In Group A action, it was Butch getting a victory over Charlie Dempsey to get 2 points. After that, we had a women's tag team match, Lola Vice and Elektra Lopez, who've been doing big things on NXT Level Up, getting a big victory here over Dana Brooke and Kalani Jordan. Dijak getting a victory over Eddie Thorpe. And then Joe Coffey and Nathan Frazier also in the Global International or Invitational in Group B action, with Joe Coffey getting a big victory over Nathan Frazier to give him 2 points. And then your main event was a fatal four-way for the number one contendership of the women's NXT title. Kiana James shocking the world, defeating Roxanne Perez, Gigi Dolan, and Blair Davenport to become that number one contender. And she will face Tiffany Stratton next week on NXT. So that's it for the beginning of WWE stuff. I've rambled on too long. I'll send it over to Sam so we can talk AEW, Impact, and everything else.
Hey, yes, gonna hop over to the first ever post Fallout / go home show for All In, All Out. Also gonna be happening, I believe, next year as well. John Moxley taking on Defeating Commander to kick the night off. Following that, we had Eddie Kingston defending his New Japan Pro Wrestling Strong Openweight title against Wheeler Yuta. It's funny, I'm looking at this card. I was looking at Raw. It looked like the matches were about the same. There weren't many of them. We had a six woman tag match. Dr. Britt Baker, DMD, Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander taking on defeating Emi Sakurai, Marina Shafir, and Nyla Rose. And then the main event, rightfully so, we had Orange Cassidy take on and defeat Penta El Zero Miedo to successfully retain the international title, going into All Out, taking on John Moxley, which we now believe is the main event of the evening. So hopping over to the Impact Zone. Actually, we're going to do Ring of Honor first, which is, at this point, it's like doing the Pokemon rap in 2023 for wrestling. So we had Zack Sabre Jr. taking on defeat Metal League to retain the New Japan Pro Wrestling television title. Josh Woods defeating John Walters. The Workhorsemen and Lee Moriarty defeating Gnarls Gavin, Invictus Cash, and Lord Crew. Cole Carter defeating Dustin Jackson. Emi Sakurai defeating Alicia Crowley. Spanish announced projects. The Prince going to Ian Helico defeating the Outrunners. Marina Shafir defeating Angelo Risk. And the Mogul Embassy defeating Action Andretti, Darius Martin, and Lee Johnson to retain the six-man tag titles. Glad to see those three are kind of becoming a force over there at Ring of Honor.
Agreed.
Funny, we had Dante for a while, who was, working all the time because Darius was out, and now we get the other side. They can't sleep on this tag team, and I feel like even though Darius isn't spending time on Dynamite, it's good that he's consistently on Ring of Honor right now.
Correct.
Hopping over to the Impact Zone. We are, I believe, a week or two away, not far away from the 1,000th episode of Impact.
I know.
Somebody bet in 2010, they'd be like, Hogan's going to run into the ground. That's not happening. But here we are today in 2023 talking about it. Alicia Edwards taking on and defeating Knockouts Tag Team Champion Masha Slamovich. Knockouts Tag Team Champion Killer Kelly. There's a lot here. Anyways, she won a Battle Royale, 10-woman Battle Royale to get a Knockouts title match. Mike Bailey defeating Crazy Steve by DQ. Eric Young defeated Khan. Chris Sabin defeated Zachary Wentz. And then the main event, Frankie Kazarian, Jake Something, and Sonata defeating Eddie Edwards, Moose, and Brian Myers. And that would make sense. I think Multiverse United just happened. Ethan and I will talk about that at some point on Rising Sun.
Yep.
I'm going to hand it over to Friday to Scott so we can talk about SmackDown before Payback.
Good old SmackDown. Yes, we had ourselves a tag team match kickoff. SmackDown's Grayson Waller and Austin Theory defeating Rey Mysterio and Santos Escobar. After that, we had Kevin Owens, Sami Zayn defeating the rest of the LWO in a good matchup. We had Shotzi getting her final revenge over Bayley after Bayley had cut pretty much Shotzi's hair off. There was obviously more backstory to this, where Shotzi's, I believe it was her sister that came out with cancer. So Shotzi shaved her head, to, show support for her sister. Now she's come out with like these spikes in her hair. It's actually, I love the cause that she did it for, obviously for her sister. But it's actually, I think it's working really well for her outside of the green hair. So after the Shotzi Bayley thing, we went into our main event, but before that, obviously, the return of the GOAT himself, John Cena. He's going to be around now for a couple of months, obviously, with the strike going on in Hollywood and throughout, the United States. He's got some free time in his hands, and he wants to come back and he wants to wrestle, probably. So I'm all for it. He's having an issue with, or I should say, Jimmy Uso, with brand new music coming out, having an issue with John Cena, saying that he's pretty much just like Roman Reigns, and he doesn't want to do that. still sticking to the claims that he wanted to, or he did what he did because he wanted to save his brother, because he didn't want him to become corrupted like Roman has, or like John is. So obviously, I'm assuming he's referencing them going to Hollywood, getting a big head, et cetera, et cetera. At least that's how I'm seeing it. So we'll see what happens. But it leads to a confrontation in the back later on. There was one in the ring with John giving an AA to Jimmy, leaving him laying, crowd going obviously batshit crazy. But this leads to an incident in the back. We have Mia Yim talking to Adam Pearce in his office, and Jimmy just barges in, clearly just like she looks at Mia. He's like, whatever. This is my problem. And Adam Pearce chews him out, kicks him out of the room. Mia goes to the rest of the club, tells them what had happened, and AJ's like, listen, I got this. Don't worry about it. Even though the Good Brothers are like, don't get involved. It doesn't matter. It is what it is. Just let it go. Let it slide off your back. So part of me's thinking, I think the Good Brothers here have a good point, but we'll see what happens with AJ Styles. AJ gets in Jimmy's face in the back. Solo comes out of nowhere, attacks AJ, tells Jimmy, you're not out of the bloodline until we tell you you're out of the bloodline. So I'm like, oh, okay. But then it seems like Jimmy leaves. We then go to our main event, which is Solo Sikoa taking on AJ Styles. Jimmy Uso does return during this main event, pretty much effectively costing AJ the match. And then at the end of the show, you see Jimmy Uso doing the one, saying, well, I guess maybe I am back in the bloodline. So we'll see what happens going forward. This also, to me, positions AJ Styles as Roman Reigns' next challenger, because obviously he's going to get his revenge on the lackeys before he goes after the big title. And I'm completely okay with that. But that's it for the WWE side of things. We'll get it back over to Sam. We'll talk Rampage, Collision, and then we're good to go.
All right. Well, we had kicking off Rampage, another loaded, hour-long show. The Dark Order taking on and defeating everybody for the number one contendership, take on for the Ring of Honor World Tag Team titles in this Battle Royale. I believe this is one that's going to happen at All Out, if I'm not mistaken. We had El Hijo del Vikingo and Nick Wayne defeat Gringo Loco and Kip Sabian. Adam Page taking on defeating Brian Keith. And then the main event, Sky Blue, Willow Nightingale defeating Anna Jay and Taya Valkyrie. Hopping over to Collision, a very uneventful show. Nothing magical happened here.
Nope.
Tony Khan officially announcing that CM Punk has been terminated from his AEW contract. We will be summarizing that in a recorded episode of Above the Ring shortly. But to kick things off, after that, we had Ricky the Dragon Steamboat, Ricky Starks call out, the Dragon, telling him, you need to come, I want to strap matches and that, Ricky comes out, and I watched this just before, and for some reason, my Collision crapped out on me. We ended up, Ricky the Dragon Steamboat comes out with the contract, and it says Ricky Starks taking on the Dragon. Ricky Starks signs it, and Ricky the Steamboat pretty much was like, well, people know me as this, and this, but people also know this guy's the Dragon. And boom, Bryan Danielson comes out. We're getting Ricky Starks, Bryan Danielson at All Out, which is, I thought, a pretty big way to start the show after the announcement from Tony Khan.
Yeah.
Billy Gunn and the Acclaimed took on defeated Angelo Parker, Daniel Garcia, and Matt Menard for the trios titles. Aussie Open took on defeated Commander and Nick Wayne. A six-woman tag match. Ruby Soho, Saraya, and Toni Storm taking on defeating Britt Baker, Hikaru Shida, and Chris Statlander. I didn't finish Collision, so I'm not sure what happened here, especially after the all-in confrontations.
Right.
Powerhouse Hobbs took on defeated GPA in 9 seconds, and then the main event, singles match, Jay White taking on defeating Dax Harwood in what I would assume is a banger of a match just with that card. So guys, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, follow us on YouTube. And again, we have a very special new episode of Above the Ring that will be dropping this week. Thank you so much, guys.